Hi, it's Mike with AskTractorMike.com. Well, I've got a viewer letter today about one of the biggest dangers to your tractor over the winter. And if you're like me, we got nice weather now, and I'm using my tractor every day, but here before long, it's going to turn off really cold, and I'm probably going to park it in my barn, and then I won't see it again until it warms up, and that could be a couple of months away. And there's a huge danger to your tractor, a silent killer that can cause havoc with your tractor while it's sitting over the winter. And you probably know where I'm going with this, but we're going to talk today about that problem and possible ways to determine if you've got it and ways possibly to prevent it, and to educate you a little bit about this problem: rodents eating wiring. Let's get to my viewer letter first today, and the letter comes from Michael. And Michael says, I have a new tractor I keep in an enclosed metal building. What is the best way to keep mice or rats from getting into the tractor and chewing on wiring? Michael. Well, Michael, that's hard to say. There are a few things that are known to work. There are several things that people think work, and we're going to talk about all of those today. But first, let's talk a little bit about mice and rats, who are the main rodents that get into tractor wiring. And I'm going to tell you 10 things today that you may or may not know about those varmints that are probably in your barn or around your place. They come in the winter and get in the tractor engine compartment and start eating wire. First thing you need to know is they're not eating wire because they're hungry. They're eating wire because they've got these gigantic front teeth that protrude, and I guess their entire life they're trying to gnaw on hard things to wear those teeth down. In other words, to grind those teeth down. And so they're not looking for food, they're looking for something to gnaw on to keep those teeth from getting to, basically so they'll fit in their face. And their teeth never stop growing, so it's an ongoing thing. They gnaw instinctively. So the first thing you need to know, they're not looking for food. So if you think you might have a food source somewhere else for them that draws them away from your barn, that's not going to work. All right, second thing you need to know is you're probably not going to know you've got them unless you're really looking for them, because they're nocturnal, and if you're out in your workshop or your shed during the day, they may be sleeping at that time and never come out. And if you see one, understand you've probably got a problem. Most estimates I saw that if you saw one mouse or rat, you've probably got between 25 and 50 living wherever you are. So that's the second thing you need to know. If you see one, you've got a problem. Third thing you need to know is they don't range out very far. A mouse will range out only from where its nest is about 15 to 30 feet. And a rat will only range out about 100 feet. So they don't get out very far. So they need food and they need water. And so if you've got a dog dish with water out there in your shed, you've provided them a great place to stay. But if you can keep the food and water away, there's a good possibility they won't ever come into your barn in the first place. And if you keep you don't have to keep the water very far away, and they won't bother you. So number 3, they don't go out very far, and keep the food and water away from them. All right, the number 4 thing you need to know is, if you're wondering if you've got a problem, the best way to find out is to look for mouse droppings, because they leave those everywhere. Those little bitty, they're less than the size of a pea, little bitty droppings that they leave. And I don't know how we know this, but a couple of mice will produce around 18,000 droppings within a 6-month period. And I don't know the researcher that had to count those, but boy, you want to talk about someone that probably hated their job. There's a guy right there that did. So the thing you want to watch for is the mouse droppings. That's number 4. Now, number 5, a way to detect if you've got a mouse or a rat problem is to watch for the footprints in dust. If you've got a floor in your shop that's got either not, like a dirt type floor, and you're not in there very much, you can go in and look for footprints. But one recommendation I saw that really makes a lot of sense: if you want to find out if you've got a problem around your tractor, or maybe your zero-turn mower or a classic car or whatever you've got in your outbuilding, put some talcum powder around the area that you're worried about them getting into, and watch that, because they'll leave tracks across that. So talcum powder, just take a whole bottle of it and sprinkle it all around, and then watch it is a great way, because their footsteps, they won't disguise, and you'll see them across the floor where they've been. If you do the talcum powder thing and you see a solid trail in between the feet, that's a rat dragging its tail. I found that out by my research on the internet. The rat will leave footprints, and they'll also leave a trail of their tail dragging the ground. So that's a great way of telling if you've got a problem. Number 5. Now, the 6th thing I'll tell you today is maybe a myth that I don't have any way to prove or not prove, but research has talked about it, and that is that there's new wiring in tractors that is based with soybean oil. And I've read soybean oil, I've read cornstarch, I've read peanut oil. In other words, rather than use petroleum products in making the covering for the wire, maybe because of cost or environmental concerns, some manufacturers are using, I know, soy oil to make that covering. And if you go around the internet, you'll read a lot of people that say that the soy oil is the reason we've got so many mice. They're eating that covering because they like the soy oil. Well, I saw a scientific study that absolutely said that is not true. And what I read is the first wiring that came out in a vehicle that was soybean oil based was in the 2008 Mustang. And as time goes on, there's been other companies develop that same technology, and it's great for soybean farmers and to get rid of that surplus product. But if you believe the internet, mice eat it. But this study said that they put out all these different types of coverings for mice to choose from, and they chose the soybean-based wiring cover about the same as they did others. And so that's only a myth, it's not true. And might ought to mention that study was commissioned by the American Soybean Association. All right, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are talking about control methods. And let's talk about most environmentally friendly control method, I guess, would be a barn cat, hungry barn cat. And growing up on a farm, we always had barn cats, and they kind of kept the mice population down. But what I have read is that barn cats are great if they're aggressive on mice, but rats are a whole different story. One study I read said that if a cat encounters an adult male rat that's a little bit aggressive, one time and they're done. They won't attack another rat, because rats can be a little bit difficult to control for a cat. And they said if your property has other things, other wildlife like bunny rabbits and things like that, the cat's going to shy away from the rats from that point forward and go to something easier to kill. And that makes sense to me. So number 7 is your barn cat works great on mice. It may not work as well on rats. Number 8, there's a lot of control methods that are supposed to work on rats and mice that may or may not. And there's just not a lot of research to back it up. And I'm sure a lot of you are going to comment on this as something maybe that you've tried that worked, or something you've always done. And while, anything is better than nothing, no guarantees anything works. I've read mothballs. You can put mothballs around your tractor or zero turn or classic car, whatever you got in your barn, and that'll scare the mice off. My wife is convinced that those bounce fabric sheets that you put in your dryer to fluff up the clothes and keep them from sticking together, that mice hate that. There's a product I'm going to actually use because it seems like the most popular one on the internet, and I've used it before every year and not had any issues. And it's called Fresh Cab, and it's designed exactly for tractor rodent control. And I'll tell you, if you get this, and what this is, it's like the most fragrant potpourri you've ever smelled. Do not open this in your house. You will regret it. First time I got this, I opened it in our bedroom, and I was kind of regretful for that point forward, and my wife was not happy. But it's a very pungent, you can smell it from a distance, actually kind of a good smell, and I think a lot of it is peppermint, but I don't know what else is in there. Peppermint is one of the controls people mention on the internet to keep mice away. But I'm going to put some of these pouches around the engine compartment of my tractor, and if anything else, it makes me feel better that I've done something to try to keep the mice away. And then there's also and somebody sent me this a few years ago. I think the people that make it to evaluate. I'm going to actually try it this year. It's a device that you plug in, and it's supposed to emit electromagnetic waves, or I don't know exactly what it does, but it sound waves of some kind that keeps mice away from your vehicle. I'm going to try it because I don't want mice. We'll see if it works. One of the problems with mice control items is you don't really know if they're working or not. You know, you could plug one in and have it run all winter long and have no mice because you weren't going to have mice anyway, but we're going to try it. But the bottom line to it is there's no proof that any of these work. But again, if it makes you feel better, do it. The number 9 thing that controls mice really well, and this is how we've always controlled them in the past, and if you're an animal rights person, this is a good time to tune out, is one of those traps that comes down on top of them. Kills them instantly. It's pretty humane. We've always, if we see one mouse, we've got the traps out, and we'll probably catch 2 or 3 more, and maybe we scare the others away. But you always want to put your traps in kind of an enclosed walkway. In other words, a pathway. We used to have a bin that we put, a metal bin that we put our feed in for our horses, and between that and the wall is where we put the traps. And you want to scatter several out in places where mice would be forced to walk in an enclosed area, and you'll catch a few. And when you quit catching them, bring the mouse traps in. But we've had to do that a few times, and my wife has always been really diligent when she sees that first mouse, getting them out. And I'm the one that gets to dispose of the mouse carcass, and I always take them out to the woods and give them a nice burial, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And I've developed kind of a flinging method where I can pull the trap snap up, and the mouse goes out in the woods and decomposes and gets a proper burial, in my opinion. And finally, number 10 today, poison, rodenticides or rodenticides. I don't even know how you say that, but poison, rat killer, does work mostly. Some of the first generation of rat killer, the rats have developed immunity to it. So if you've got some old rat killer, it may not work. And some of that stuff, if the rat got it and got into it, it could leave droppings that other animals ate and they died, or if something ate the rat, it would die. It could kill other animals. The new ones are pretty humane because they kill the rat immediately, and they don't stay around where other animals can ingest them too. And I've not seen these, but I think it's a great idea. If you're going to put rat killer outside, they've got what's called a rat bait house, which is a little house where you put the bait, and then nothing can get in there but a rat, supposedly. You know, a cat won't eat it, or a dog, or whatever. It's designed for a rat, and those are available at your local farm and home stores. And if you're putting poison out, I would get a rat bait house, just so that only thing you kill is what you're trying to get rid of. So all that to say, mice and rats are a big problem in tractors, and do everything you can to control them and watch out for them. We've always had horses around and feed for the horses, and we're always out in the barn fairly often in the winter. And this year we're out of the horse business. We had an older horse we put down, and the other horse we got rid of. And so we're out of the horse business now. So we're not out here as much. I'm not going to be feeding round bales. So I'm really concerned about it. And I'm going to also this year for the first time put a 0 turn in this barn. And so I'm really concerned. So I'm trying both the smelly potpourri stuff and the electric thing, and then we'll keep an eye out. And I may use the talcum powder thing too to make sure I've not got a problem, but I don't want a big surprise this spring, and you don't either. I appreciate you watching my videos. I would be honored if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can do that by clicking the mic face icon, and make sure you check the bell so you get notified when I post future videos. Here's a link to my website and the Tractor Fun Store with cool things for sale for the tractor owner. It helps support my channel. And here's another couple of videos you might want to watch. Thanks for watching.